Okay, we're recording now, and we have here film participants in two of the screenings, two of the films you just saw. We have John Zillis from I Was There, and we have the director and producer actor from The Forgotten Place. Oscar, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, how you guys doing? My name is Oscar Lozoya, and I'm the, like you said, director of The Forgotten Place.
Brian?
And I'm Brian Flackis. I am an actor and producer of The Forgotten Place.
And John?
And my name is John Zillis, and I'm the director from I Was There.
Great. So Oscar or Brian, you want to tell us what inspired you to make the film?
I could kick this one off because
go for it.
Unfortunately could not make it, but Jeff Locker was the writer, and it came, at a time when it's about friendship and finding a best friend, and being a confusing thing to do in the modern age where so much of our interaction is online, especially in the last year. But he and I became friends, and he ended up just writing it as a one-off, as a one-act play, and we performed the play off Broadway. It was very well received, and then we presented it to Oscar, being the most talented director we know, and he had a great vision for it, and we decided to shoot it as a short film and see if it worked.
Cool. John, what inspired your project?
I'm always sort of on the lookout for interesting people, moving through life. I'm especially always interested in older men. I was raised by my grandfather, and he died when I was in my young 20s. So I've always sort of looked for older men who are mentor-like. And I'm very curious on what makes people in general, but specifically men, stay boyish and full of wonder as they get older versus becoming old and jaded and bitter, and what sort of things in life break people down. So I'm always looking for those sort of people, and Ivor popped into my life with this crazy energy, and so that began the exploration of what he was about.
Cool.
And I have a question for you, John, if you don't mind. I
Please.
mentioned I saw your film at a recent festival and I loved it. How did you meet John, or I'm sorry, how did you meet the main character of your film? Was it just by chance you ran into him one day, or had you worked with him on a project? Because he's a journalist, correct?
Yeah, he's a journalist. He lives in my hometown, and actually I know we met his children at a party. They're my age. So, and I think they had brought him to that party. So, sort of at a gathering, he was there, and he's very extemporaneous. And so it's sort of, that's what opened the thinking about it.
Very cool.
How did you fund the film, John?
My wife might stream this. I can't tell anyone. No, I'm a commercial cinematographer and director, and so I have all my own equipment. So there really wasn't, the only cost is my time. I got and my editor and composer, everybody worked on it as a labor of love. So kind of, other than buying a few hard drives and gas, it's just time. It's 2 years of time.
That's beautiful. And Brian and Oscar, how was this funded? Did the play theater produce the revenue for the film?
Go ahead and take this one too, Brian.
Yeah, the fun, easy questions. So
Yeah.
Unlocking the secrets of indie filmmaking.
Right.
Yes, the secrets are no one got paid. It was similar to John. It was a labor of love, and a lot of people really just connected with the story and jumped on board. Jeff Locker did show the play to a lot of people. His brother became an executive producer, and we had some funding. Also, Jane Hare generously joined on board as an EP, but we did it very micro budget, and same thing with the skills that Oscar has as a director and an editor. He was kind of almost a one-man band in putting this thing together, and labor of love when people believe in a story. And take it, Oscar.
No, I was going to say that was one of the benefits, it being a play prior to us doing the short film is, we reached out to a couple of people that are, some of our very talented friends, like Alex Laya, who is a DP, and Alex Rains, who is a producer. And, you know, a lot of times when you show people the script, it's hard for them to visualize exactly what the story's about. And being that it was a play, we had shown them the play, so they were able to actually even just get the emotions and the feelings and what we were kind of going for based off the play. So it was also very helpful in recruiting people in a sense to essentially work for us for no money. And so with that being said, they had not only the script, but also some type of a visual element, almost like a pitch to help us make the film. And so, like Brian said, it was just a lot of really talented people that helped us out. And then we did have a little bit of funding from Jane as well as Jeff's brother. So
Cool.
And the Cows family as well.
Mhm.
One of our producers actually went to school in Ojai, so
yeah.
Oh,
we made some
cool.
local connections.
Oh, nice. So what's your target audience? What do you do with the film when it's a labor of love, and where do you see it going, or what would be the ideal path that the film takes?
I think for us, as far as the target audience, I hope that this story could kind of relate to anyone because it's so broad and is about friendship. Where, you know, we hope to distribute the film is, you know, nowadays it's pretty amazing with what kind of an audience you could capture on streaming or even YouTube. You know, we're hoping for this as far as the more eyes, the better. But anyone that I think has ever, you know, gone through a friendship, and especially now, like Ryan was saying, where we don't have as much social interaction, I think this is kind of that target audience for people that want to that are kind of going through a lot of difficult times during not only COVID, but just could be their life. So
Right.
And I'd love to add to that as well. You know, short films are somewhat difficult to distribute in some ways. There's a smaller market, although there are great platforms like Omeletto that are, you know, getting them out to pretty big audiences, and Netflix has invested in some short films, which they won the Oscar for this year. And but we've also developed a larger IP for it. So we have now developed a whole TV series with this
Cool.
kind of as a proof of concept for the magical realism and the importance on mental health and friendship that is going to be based on. So we've actually been taking that out and pitching it as a series as well to expand the universe.
Oh, that's beautiful. Good for you. How about you, John?
Oh God, I have no idea. I always hope this is the third of short doc that I've made, and I always submit them to New York Times op docs because that's what I think is kind of the high standard of well-made things. And they've all three times they've said no. So I just keep throwing them on my website. But I also use I was a cinematographer for 20 years, and over the last 3 years, I've been pivoting to work as a director. So what I really needed was material for a show reel to get opportunities. So now I'm starting to get work in advertising using these films. So that was sort of my main goal. And then any other way that I can share the films, you know, festivals and whatever, is just bonus.
Right. So 2 questions you can answer in any order. What was the hardest part of the production, and what was the most rewarding part of the production? Could be 3 answers here from 3 people.
I'll go for one of the hardest parts was we started shooting this a week before the COVID lockdown hit here in Los Angeles. And so we had 2 out of 3 days in the can. And after that, you know, we kind of had to figure out how we were going to continue to shoot this. And so it was kind of cool because it forced us to think outside of the box. So we did a lot of visual effects. We did a lot of things that I think actually benefited the film that we otherwise hadn't planned for. So even though it was tough to figure out the schedule, I think it did benefit us in the end. But I think that was, for me, the hardest part, is just figuring out safely how to continue the production.
Mm.
Yeah.
How about rewarding? Can you think of something that?
I think truly just the response that we've been getting, for me anyway, from other filmmakers that have seen the film. We've been fortunate enough to get into a couple other film festivals, and a lot of people after the film have come up to us and just said how much they enjoyed the film. And I think for me, the best response that I've gotten that a couple people have said is, you know, after I watched your film, I literally stepped out of the theater and I called my best friend who I hadn't talked to in in years or months or however long that may be. And so for me, that is the
That's
most
great.
rewarding when I hear that it actually did affect people.
Oh, that's great. Cool. Brian, you want to add to that? Hard or rewarding?
I definitely, well, without sounding too boring, because I absolutely second those things. It was really challenging shutting down the production midway, especially when we were so close to finishing it, and then had to put it on the shelf for months at a time. But the upside to that was not only that we got the production value of me growing a beard and having all these, looking like the years I did actually change, and being physically weathered by the intensity of that year. But also it gave me hope throughout the pandemic that we had a creative project that I was working on and collaborating with my close friends, that we had this shining light of art being the salvation to, you know, just our own mental health, just something to look forward to every day, to get up and say, I'm working on something that I care about with people that I like. And it just reminded me that that's what I want to do with every day of my life.
Beautiful. Wow. John, what was hard or
Yeah,
what
that's
was
super cool.
great?
I mean, I'm just going to jump on Brian's thing for a second, because then I'll tell you about the film. But that art during the pandemic, I started doing an interview film, you know, what, like 4 or 5 weeks into it. That isn't in any festival, it's just a little thing on my website. But I was calling friends around the world. I set up my iPad in my studio and I was filming my iPad and just talking to people all around the world, people that I've met through my career, about how they were coping with COVID. And it was so amazing, because it was so into the project and, you know, making something through that period of time. And then when John Krasinski started doing that Some Good News thing, I loved that it was all positive messaging, right, in this scary time, and I felt like there wasn't enough of that, so I made a little positive project. So it was great, yeah, Brian, like you said, to have something to work on to keep you up during what was such an time of uncertainty. But sorry, to answer your question, would you say what was the hardest part? The hardest part is always finding collaborators, like especially editors, when you have no money and you're asking someone to invest so many dozens and dozens and dozens of hours of their time. That kills me on every project, you know. That's always the hardest part. And then I think the most gratifying part, which I didn't see coming, when I finished it and you're in that process where you're sending it out to, you know, close friends and people to kind of get some feedback. A friend of mine had lost his wife maybe 18 months before I finished my film. And spoiler alert, there's a story about the hero of my film losing his wife. And, you know, my friend called me and was sort of filled with gratitude, because he's been struggling with grief so much. And sort of the message of my film, he said, your message, it just helped me, it helped him so much transcend, sort of move to another plane on his grief. And I'd never even thought about that, you know, I was just trying to tell a good story. I never thought about the fact that people who experience similar aspects of loss might find this film inspiring. So that was super cool.
Yeah, that's nice. That's really nice. Cool. Who've been influences on you all as artists and filmmakers?
For me specifically on this short film, you know, being that this kind of does have a magical realism feel, I really watch Tim Burton and Big Fish a lot, just to kind of get some motivation, or I'm sorry, some inspiration. And I'm sure you could tell by my transitions, you know, Edgar Wright, of course, was a big influence on this. I just love the way his story moves so fluidly, and how he's able to transition from scene to scene, and it's almost invisible, but yet at the same time, it's very powerful, and you notice it with a stylistic kind of twist and edge to it. As far as just my overall influences, I personally love Steven Soderbergh. He's one of my favorite directors, just because he does everything and he's just really a true artist. When he's not filmmaking, you know, I always jump on his website randomly and he'll be recutting Indiana Jones in a black and white version. And so for me, the fact that he's been doing this for so long, but yet he's still consistently motivated to make art, you know, that's one of the main reasons he's such a big inspiration for me.
Yeah. That's one of the things, if I just interject, in my early career, belying my age, people had to do internships, 10, 15 years, learning camera, you know, and that's all gone now. You can learn a camera because you're using your iPhone, you're using video, I mean, kids are learning to edit and do camera work in like 2-3 years, which used to take decades. And there was a resentment from the older establishment of film people that didn't want these youngsters coming along so quickly. And it's just so nice to see the refreshing content that comes out of all this new energy. So you guys are taking great advantage of it, and I applaud that. So, but back to Brian, what are your influences in life or in the film?
Oh man, in life and the film, there's such a
As an artist, yeah. What's been your influence?
Yeah, for filmmaking in particular, there's a fine balance, because we've definitely taken so much inspiration from the Duplass brothers and the way that their method of just get it done, and creating so much. There's so much art so prolifically with so little resources, but not ever compromising the story, and always having such a good emotional core to everything they tell. And to your point, I think that they do use a lot of that new technology in such innovative ways, while still always getting good story out. So we've modeled some of what we do at our production company, The Night's Young, to try to keep in that spirit of always making art, not letting lack of resources be an excuse for not doing anything, and still always stay true to an emotional core that we believe in.
Where are you located? Where is the production company?
In Los Angeles.
In Los Angeles, cool.
Mm-hmm.
How about you? I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, not at all. We're just right next door, neighbors.
Oh, that's cool. John, who's influenced you through the years?
I don't have any one answer. I mean, just, I'm one of those guys who did come through the analog. I came as a PA and camera assistant, and they wouldn't let me touch the camera for 10 years, and so
don't
along
touch
the way,
that sandbag.
Yeah, I had a lot of anti-role models, I think, is probably the better truth. Just so many people who were assholes or full of themselves. And I suppose, actually, if you look, one of the things I think about as I made my short is my experience with Hollywood, and I found a kinship in Ivor the first time I interviewed him, talking about working with famous people and seeing how often their lives are more messed up than your friends and the normal people in your life. So it's just a string of people and events along my 25 years, Jesus, almost 30 years that I've been doing this.
Cool.
Kind
Cool.
of.
And Brian and Oscar, if you don't get a chance to come, Ivor is doing a full program that'll be on the streaming section on Sunday night. So and John will be here with him for that. So there'll be more magic from
Very cool.
from that world. So any advice for young filmmakers? If you knew what you know now and were starting out as a 20-year-old or 15-year-old or whatever, what would you tell a young filmmaker?
I always just kind of like you said a little bit, everything is so accessible today. People can make a movie on their iPhone if they want to. One of the best pieces of advice or sayings that I've recently heard is it's better to make 50 shorts in 1 month than to spend 1 month making one short. And the reason is just because you learn things along the way, and you just get so much experience doing those 50 versus putting all your time and energy in just that one. And so for me personally, I could just see, and I always go back to when I made errors, and I try to learn from my mistakes, and you can't make those mistakes unless you do them. And the more frequently you do them, the more you'll learn from them. So
the Roger Corman school of filmmaking. Every time I
Yes.
meet people who work for him, they just cranking it out all the time, and you learn a lot. It's a great
Versus
point.
the Stanley Kubrick school, where it's
Right.
got to be absolutely perfect for 5 years before I'm going to let anybody see it. Yeah. How about you, Brian? What would you tell the young Brian at 20?
Man, don't worry so much. Don't worry what other people are thinking, because they're probably not thinking about you. Everyone's thinking about themselves. And to piggyback on that, just make stuff, and make a lot of stuff. There's this ceramics parable about the fact that quantity leads to quality, and it's really hard to learn unless you've made a lot of mistakes and also made a lot of successes. So I think not being too precious about the work, but just staying in the process and just make it. So make it now, make it well, and celebrate it afterwards.
Cool. John, what would you tell?
I would say to the young filmmakers, it's, again, 20 years as a cameraman, and everyone, I lived in that world where everyone's obsessed about the lenses or the camera or the how many K or this or that. And you can, and the Sony and everyone wants to, they want you to keep buying better screens and bigger cameras. Like the industry pushes a new toy, but it's always about the idea. Make it on your iPhone, save the $2,000, do what these guys are saying, and make, 20 films instead of making one where you bought a fancy camera, because there's all sorts of stuff that is shot on fancy cameras that's just unwatchable. But the great ideas can be made on an iPhone 6. Doesn't matter, right? If it's a great idea. So I think it's all about the idea.
Right. Cool. So my last question, and you guys are welcome to wander around beyond that, but what's next? Oscar, you got anything in the hopper?
Right now I'm currently working on a TV show, and we're crazy busy, so I'm just trying to stay above water with work and somewhat managing my lack thereof social life. But yeah, no, other than that,
paying some bills.
yeah.
Right.
Other than that, though, I'm supposed to direct something else in February, and I'm looking forward to that. So
Cool.
yeah.
Brian?
Oh man, we have a lot of things in the fire right now. Not least of which is the pilot version based on The Forgotten Place that we've been taking meetings for. We also just finished production on our next short, or finished and just started submitting it to film festivals. So hopefully we will be back. It's called These Final Hours. Can show up to Ojai next year.
Great.
And yeah, we just wrapped production on our most recent feature just last week, and it's a horror comedy called Scream Therapy. So there's a lot of things going on.
That's cool.
Yeah.
How about you, John?
I'm just, making commercials, and I like to say I make things you don't need look so good that you'll buy it anyway. And then I'm working on another short about a musician. I really wanted to make a film, a music. I love musicals in general, and I love music documentaries. So I found a very compelling gentleman who's a serious pianist, and I'm trying to figure out how to make his story interesting.
Cool.
So,
and out of the stuff you direct, John, do you primarily just direct documentaries, or do you also do narrative as well?
I'm going for the Errol Morris model, which is, real people. It's just kind of the space that I'm comfortable in, and I think I have probably the most talent at. So that's sort of where I live.
Cool.
Very cool.
Oh, that's nice. Anything else you'd like to say to your viewing audience?
I just want to say thank you for having us at the Ojai Film Festival, and if you watch, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for also supporting art and coming out. Art is, and film in particular, is very much an interactive medium. You need an audience, and I hope that we can be there to experience it with you, because feeling the emotional engagement is one of the main reasons we do it. So yeah. Thanks for coming out.
Great.
Yeah, let's hope online festivals don't become the norm and we're all back together next year.
Right. No, I think the hybrid is the best solution, where you get time later to watch things you want to catch up to, but
to watch something again, because oftentimes, right, you see something at a festival and you wait so long for it to be sold or whatever, and you can't find it. So this is a pretty cool thing. Yeah.
Well, congratulations to you all, Oscar and Brian. I loved your film. It was very affecting, very well done. And John, I look forward to. I've seen one of Ivor's programs, and he's wonderful. He's amazing. So thanks for bringing him back to us. Take care.
Thank you so much.
Thank
You're
you
welcome.
guys.